Your host, Starlet Henderson, here with this episode's thought leader, Lindsey Wander from Worldwise Tutoring. Worldwise Tutoring. So, Lindsey, I was on your website and I was checking out tutoring, and I thought, well, this is much, much more than the after-school program I may have participated in when I was younger. So, tell us what you're doing with your company, and eventually we want to hit on your nonprofit as well.
Perfect. The nonprofit is doing something very similar too. With both companies, my goal is to get the students off of tutoring, which is kind of weird. So to do that, we have to teach them the skills so that they can manage their own education
Mhm.
and beyond. And that requires us to take a few steps back. Instead of just sitting there and doing homework with them or studying for a test, we have to think of what other foundational skills are causing them to have difficulty in this particular situation. It might be something about self-awareness. It might be something with goal setting or growth
Mhm.
mindset. It might just be the nitty gritty. I don't know how to study, or I'm not, I mess up my time management, or I forget to turn this in. Little teeny, skill set that can really impact grades and test scores dramatically, more so than maybe just not understanding it, which again, this is all grade appropriate standards. That shouldn't be the situation.
Mhm.
So we work on a lot of the underlying learning and life skills to get the kids more confident, more independent, get them to have a love of learning, to enjoy the process of trying new strategies, of creatively problem solving, of innovating, all of these things that they just often don't have the opportunity to do. So not only will their grades and test scores improve, but we're hoping to set them up with a toolbox that they can use in other classes and beyond, and then potentially lead them down a career path that they actually love. And so it really does start with those foundational skills.
Right. Yeah. So those soft skills and those
Yep.
transferable skills and those ones that they'll need, like you said, to kind of take the reins eventually. You're growing yourself out of a job. I remember talking to you about that before. Um, so tell us where you're doing that. I know you're doing it online and mainly in Texas and Illinois in person, but give us the 411 on those kind of details.
So I have tutors. I have about 60 tutors now, and they're on the ground all throughout Illinois and Texas, from the cities to the suburbs, just kind of everywhere in between.
Hmm.
But obviously, we've been online this entire time, way before the pandemic. And it was a little bit of a fight to get parents to kind of see, like, learning can be effective online. We know
Hmm.
how to do
Yeah,
this.
that was a growth
Yeah.
curve for a lot of people in
And now,
2019.
yep, 2020 happened and everyone's in these meetings and they're like, oh, it is doable. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
we've been doing Zoom for 6 years now. Like, it
Yeah.
totally works. So now I've had more opportunity to have online students as well, which I really like because I'm not as limited with geographic regions when I match the tutor with the student. And so I have more opportunities to make a better match. But of course, there are some students where the online just isn't working for them for whatever reason, whether it's a learning difficulty or they're struggling with engagement, whatever it might be. And so in
Right.
those cases, we still have the in-person.
Yeah, that's nice. And so 60 tutors. And I think we were talking offline, and I thought I heard you say you had students from like age 6 to 60. So
Oh,
we're not just
ooh,
talking
60.
about, junior high, high school. Kind of tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said all ages, and I
Mhm.
really got put to the test during this pandemic. They really checked me on that. So yeah, we have a few students that are as young as 2.
Mhm.
We have a lot of preschool students. Basically, what's happening is parents are worried that the kids haven't been getting this engagement and the proper experiences in order to start school. And they're not educators, and so they want to bring in
Right.
a professional to make sure that they are still hitting their milestones. With the pandemic, we also had a lot of people who made career changes or went back to school, use this as a time to reset. So
Got
I
it.
do have some adults that are now looking at second careers or looking at just adding to their skill set by doing an enrichment
Mhm.
curriculum with one of our tutors to better build their resume, because maybe they are going to make a job shift in the future and they see that happening. So yes, I've always said all ages, all subjects, and man, I've been put to the test on that, but we have delivered
Mhm.
and everyone is happy and learning. And so we made it through.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking like those ages, maybe for 40 to 60, right, are kind of like me, right? I'm in that demographic that learned how to do math but maybe not how to study, or how to do those executive functioning skills that you said that your tutors also help you with. So they're coming back for more of what maybe they missed earlier on.
Yeah, or if they are going back to school and they have to take a test of some sort, now they have to remember the stuff they learned 20, 25 years ago because our
Catch
tests
up.
are still a little bit antiquated, you know? And so it's a matter of, you know, refreshing that memory. Or maybe they had a blockage, like, you know, I just suck at math, I hate math, and now they're having to take a math assessment. And so we have to do a little bit of work there to help change that inner dialogue and also to get them, you know, understanding the math.
Right. So you're helping, you said your parents, they're not educators, they've come to you. What is your background? Are you an educator?
I am. So I was a classroom teacher before I started my business. I started Worldwise Tutoring about a decade ago. And before that, I was a classroom teacher. I taught middle school. People think
Mhm.
I'm crazy, but it's my favorite age for the classroom setting. So seventh and eighth grade STEM. It was very focused on the biology, the engineering, the math side. And I worked in low income neighborhoods in California. So I was working with high risk youth and loved it. I just loved my job. It was not, I left the teaching profession for the reason that I felt like I wasn't able to do enough. When I moved to Chicago,
Mhm.
I was hindered by a lot of red tape of just do test questions all day long. And I'm like, why? I have a storage unit full of dissection kits and microscopes. Like, let me teach. And I couldn't, and it was frustrating. And I just felt like I wasn't using my talents. And so that's when I decided instead of just tutoring part time, I would tutor full time. And here we are 10 years later.
Got it. And so, in the terms of thought leadership, that's exactly kind of what you did. You like, wait, I can think for, outside this box that teachers are put in. So tell us a little bit about your journey as far as, what does being a thought leader mean to you and how are you doing this every day in your work?
So I think everyone can agree that our current educational system is antiquated. You know, it was designed during the Industrial Revolution when it was
Mhm.
all about just doing the same repeated task over and over again. And it wasn't about innovation or creativity or thinking outside the box. Clearly, there's a difference now, and people are embracing that as a goal, but we haven't really adjusted the way we educate our K through 12 students to do that. And so, me from a science background, I've always kind of had a think like a scientist
Mhm.
attitude where I like to wonder about the world, you know, think of how I can do things better, try things out,
Yes.
reflect back if it doesn't work. And so I started applying that to my teaching methodologies, and I really began to implement more student-centered lessons. And it seems overwhelming, you know, because it is a lot of work in the beginning to kind of change. It's a paradigm shift, really,
Right.
of you're almost handing the learning over to the students, but in a way that's very structured, but allowing them to take ownership for it. And it is a little intimidating, but it was very, very successful. While it was a lot of work to set up, my classroom would run itself Monday through Friday. The kids loved being there. They said they came just for my class. Our
Mhm.
scores were higher than the Beverly Hills kids, and we were in South Central Los Angeles. And so it was like, really effective. And from that point, without being taught, I realized that we really do have to meet these kids where they are in order to get them excited about learning. And then, with that being my primary goal of making learning fun, everything else falls into place. They are going to learn. And so, with that, the tutoring is primarily about meeting them where they are. Let's see where you're strong, where we can improve. What are things you're interested in? What are things you're passionate about? Trying to kind of shape things for them, and then getting them to a place where they're confident and independent, and now more equipped to not only try other things, but to feel empowered to take those risks because it's all part of the learning process of having fun.
Mhm.
And with that, we're slowly able to release them to kind of let them handle things on their own, knowing that we're here if they need us again in the future,
Right.
which they often inevitably do
Resource.
because 2, 3 years down the line is another challenge. But they kind of check in, hey, I'm struggling here, but they're better able to pinpoint where they're having trouble, what they need help with. And so they're advocating for themselves in a sense. And that's really what I learned from being a classroom teacher. I had to stop and think, what is the most important thing for these kids to learn? You know, is
Right.
it the stages of mitosis? Is it, all the different organ systems? Is that really that important? Like, or is it more about, I want them to enjoy having fun. I want them to be able to creatively problem solve and to come up with new ideas and, advocate and all these other things, and articulate themselves, and
Right.
with all those other valuable skills. And so I think that we have to recognize not all learning comes from a book. It doesn't have to be the old antiquated way. There's other ways to learn. And in doing that, they're actually learning more than just what we're wanting them to learn. They're learning some really valuable life skills along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of like what you were saying as far as mitosis and memorization. I mean, those things, you used to have limited books, right? Or limited resources and all the answer, or you'd have to go to the library. Now you can just go on the computer. So it's just times have changed. And yes, education has to change with it.
I remember my first year teaching, the principal came in my room and he was mad because the books weren't open and on their desk. And I'm like, I'm teaching biology. We don't learn biology from a book. Like, we're going to build it. We're going to do it. We're going to test it out. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there has to be some changes.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, speaking of that too, like, so you're learning and doing and hands-on stuff. How is that translated into the Zoom classroom or the Zoom appointments?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my short answer to that is we're experts at the education. We are Our whole process is to work with the challenging situations. And so
Got it.
we're really good at having different kind of tools to pull out if the kid's not engaged, if the kid's not motivated. We're really good at reading our students and knowing kind of what's going on inside, what's being displayed externally. So it's a lot of flexibility and adjustment, knowing that not only is this week going to be different than next week, but this minute could be different than last minute.
Right.
We're dealing with living people here, and just really being able to read them and adjust in a way that's supportive is key. So, we have a toolbox we pull from for the online, but a lot of it is shifting. I mean, some of the things are movements. We have movements to get the kids engaged. We do different visuals with them. While there are limiting factors of us only being on the screen, there's also a lot of things that are now available to us because we're on the screen. So we try to use those tools to make it a more powerful session in ways that maybe we wouldn't be able to do if we were in person.
Mhm.
So, it's all about balance, and again,
Balance is
just really
balance.
reading the student.
Yeah. And I saw too on your website, some of these things that you have learned from yourself. That's like square one, you're teaching your tutors, right? So your tutors are vetted and they're trained, and it's not like, hey, I'm good at math, I can sit with this student and
Oh
help.
no.
Yeah.
Oh no. I get a lot of those applications every day. I can teach this. Oh, really? Well, then I ask a lot more, and then I train them too, because it all sounds great. I think everyone agrees with a lot of what I'm saying, but it's like, well, but how?
Right.
How do I do that? And so that's, again, kind of like I do with my students. I empower my tutors with the tools that they can pull from. And so I give them different scenarios, different situations. How can they best assess when this is happening? This is what they need. Here's how you can proactively prevent that from even happening, and giving them really concrete strategies that they can utilize in different environments.
Got it. And oh, by the way, this is how you reach me when you hit a block, right? I can be
Yeah,
there for you as
exactly.
well.
Yep. But then, like with my students, giving them the resources so that they have places to check before they come to me. That's how it is with our students too. I shouldn't be your first line of defense, once you're empowered. I can be there as a coach, but I'm not your crutch.
Right.
So knowing that we're here when you need us, and it's okay to ask for help, but you should have really tried. And there's so much. I mean, think of things you've done in your life that you figured out on your own. There's just such a good feeling of figuring things out on your own, and kids especially love that. So setting them up with systems so they know where to go or how to go there is
Mhm.
really good. But then
Yeah.
if they come to us not making them feel bad about it, I tried this, and that, and I still don't understand. Awesome. Let me
Right.
help.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting them used to and comfortable with the fact you may not find it on your first try has got to be very valuable.
And we model that too as tutors. I don't know everything. So sometimes I
Yeah.
have to look for stuff, and that's totally fine.
Right. Yeah. That is definitely a life skill,
Mhm.
to not know it all, which is
Yes.
kind of, yeah. Uh, and I was going to say oxymoron, but that's not the word, and I'll have to look it up when I'm done what word I was looking for, but it's opposite of what we're thinking as far as like, we don't have to know it all. But now, so you have Worldwise Tutoring, as far as wise and smart, Worldwise Tutoring, and then you have the Educate, Radiate, Elevate. This is your nonprofit that you're basically doing the same thing through a nonprofit arm. Am I correct?
Correct. One of the things that's really been nagging at me over the past 10 years of having Worldwise Tutoring is, what about the kids who can't afford the tutoring, who
Mhm.
are totally capable, who are driven, who are passionate, who have these dreams, they can't afford our services? And that's been something that's been on the back of my mind at all times, like, how can I do this? It was presented to me last year, why don't you just start a second business as a nonprofit? And it was like light bulb went off, like, oh,
I did. Feel
okay.
you.
Yeah, and I tried so many other things over the years that just didn't work. And so that's the path I went down. Not to say that's easy. Starting a nonprofit from scratch is a lot of work, but it's definitely a passion project. And so what we're doing with the nonprofit is giving the same type of tutoring where we're really working on those underlying skills
Mhm.
alongside and interwoven into our lessons for academics and test prep and enrichment, whatever they might need help with. But it's primarily focused on K through 12 low income students of color. And my reason for that is because not only is there a spotlight shining on education from the pandemic, but definitely on inequities
Mhm.
in society, whether it's healthcare, mental health, but even educational equity and access
Supplemental,
to
yeah,
technology.
education.
Right. And I've read so many articles projecting, what is this going to do to our society in 10, 20, 30 years? These kids who are falling so behind this past year because they don't have a computer or they don't have Wi-Fi or their
Right.
parents aren't home to help them. And so that was the little flame I had under my butt to get things moving. And that's really what I'm hoping to address, is to empower them. It's same with our other students with these tools so that they can change their lives and the lives of those around them. But also empowering them with technology and other resources so that they can go beyond our lessons and have better access to education.
Yeah. So that's so generous and important work. So good for you.
Thank
So
you.
tell us again, your websites, where to find you so that people can get connected either through Worldwise or your nonprofit.
So our for-profit company is worldwisetutoring.com. On
Mhm.
there, you'll see link to all of our social media as well. We're on every social media, and that's where I'm posting about free events and free resources and all kinds of tips and tools. So those are good places to follow.
Mhm.
On that website, there's also a student handbook, which has a ton of free resources for students to access. And there's a blog, which is really geared towards giving advice for parents and
Mhm.
educators, especially in light of recent events. So
Yeah.
I encourage you guys to check those out. The nonprofit is educateradiateelevate.org, or you can just do eretutoring.org because sometimes it's hard to spell it out. And that's where you'll hear more about our mission, what our program looks like. You can even nominate a student, you can partner with us, you can donate. There's lots of opportunities there to get involved. We are looking for volunteers, things like that are remote, again, trying to speak to helping college and high school students
Sure.
get some volunteer experience. And then we're on social media also.
Wow. So tutoring for the 21st century.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
ERE tutoring and Worldwise tutoring. Thanks, Lindsay, for your time. That was a great overview of what
Thank
you do,
you.
and it's very generous and great work out there. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I love it.